Tim Autrey, and welcome to this resource video for the 7 Natural Principles of Human Performance. If you already have a copy of the book, 7 Natural Principles of Human Performance, great! If not, you can grab a hard copy, Kindle version, or audio version on Amazon. You can also find more information about the book at 7naturalprinciples.com. That's 7naturalprinciples.com. This video is an excerpt from the PPI Human Performance Leadership Masterclass, which is part of PPI Lab. You can access the full course as well as a ton of resources to help you improve safety, reliability, efficiency, productivity, and profitability by joining PPI Lab. More information is available at ppiweb.io/PPI Lab. That's ppiweb.io/PPI Lab. Thanks for being here. Let's get to it. Welcome back. In this episode, we are going to talk about what is perhaps the single most important concept in this entire masterclass. We're going to talk specifically about the basis or the platform from which to grow a bigger, better, happier, more fulfilled life. We're going to talk about the difference between content and context. Now, I like to use a little demonstration here so that you really are able to anchor in what we're talking about. So I have a little container here. As you can see, this container's got some water in it. Now obviously, metaphorically, this container is the content inside of this container. Therefore, the container is the metaphor for context. The context has a size, it has a shape, and you may or may not have noticed that there is a lid on this container. You know, studies have shown that the average human being, at least in the Western world today, by the time we reach about the age of 29 years old, our context and our basic perceptions about most everything is pretty much set. And if we don't take some overt action to grow ourselves, we pretty much stay there and just live out the rest of our lives. So I want to show you what that looks like. Would you agree with me, first of all, that the world is rapidly changing? I don't think anybody would deny that. There's all kinds of new information, new developments, new technology, all kinds of things going on, and they're all going on around us. Now, if we're sitting here like this with a set amount of content, and we've pretty much set in our ways, we've got a lid on our container, it looks like this. So new information comes along and might even attempt to approach us, but we're not even open to it. So the first thing you need to do is you need to recognize that step one is to take the lid off of your container to open your mind to new ideas, new concepts, new perspectives, new perceptions, different opinions. Open your mind and recognize you don't know everything. You know, that's one of the things I've loved over the years about interacting with experts in different fields. And, you know, there's a lot of fantastic expertise out there, but, you know, one of the old tomes about experts is an expert is someone who can give you 1,000 reasons why something won't work. And in this era of rapid transformation, we need to be more focused on possibility rather than impossibility. All right, so here's the thing. So here you are now. You've at least decided to be open-minded. You've got X amount of content inside of your context. So, okay, I've done my thing. I'm open-minded. So now, something comes along, let's say, for example, this masterclass, which has a bunch of content in it, which can serve you and serve those around you, all the way from your personal relationships to running a huge enterprise, whatever your station in life happens to be. And there's content in here as well as all kinds of other places in the world that can really help you. So now you're open to it, but you have not yet expanded your context. So you can handle a little more content and a little more content, but what happens when the content keeps coming at you if you maintain the same size of context? Well, we're not adding any value, are we? Now, the thing that I would like to point out from this is we've been talking about personal perspective, internal, looking at the outside. What about if you are a trainer or a leader or a coordinator, supervisor, manager, director, executive, CEO, small business owner, and you would really love for your team members to expand their awareness, their knowledge, their capabilities, and their skills? Well, if they don't expand their context, you are just absolutely wasting your time. Now, one of the things I want to point out here real quickly before I go further is, you know, I've been, you may or may not have noticed this as a smart water bottle. Well, When they first came out with this, I thought, great, I can drink this stuff and it'll make me smarter. Well, I've been drinking this stuff for a long time, and best I can tell, it hasn't worked worth a flip to make me smarter. But it sure tastes good. So anyway, here's what you need to do. When you expand your context, and you make an overt effort to do this, first you're open-minded, and then you make an overt effort to grow, to really recognize how little you know in the grand scheme of things and be open and allow yourself to grow and expand, you can go from something like this to something like this. Now check this out. This context was full. Now look at this. We have room for a whole bunch of new content. This, my friends, is the first step for having a bigger, better, happier, more fulfilled life, for a better career, whatever that means to you, and ultimately, I would say, for being a happier human being, which in actuality is what we're all looking for, right? Okay, so let's do a little bit of recap here. Content, context, which one is more important? Obviously, the size of your context, because it determines how much content you can handle. And I want to give you another example of what I'm talking about here, something that most of us can relate to. Let's say that in your mind, your context is you are never going to make more than $100,000 a year. Now, I have no idea how much money you make. That might be a small amount. You might already be way beyond that. But let's just use that as an example. Let's say you're currently making $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, and in your mind, $100,000 is as high as you're ever going to go. Well, here's what I can tell you. If that's the size of your context, I can just about guarantee you are never going to make more than $100,000 a year. Because what happens there is all the opportunities and everything that are coming along have to interface with your context. And if it's like, nope, I'm only going to go to 100,000, you're not even going to see possibilities, you're not even going to see opportunities, you're not going to be open to them. That context is going to impact your mindset and your perception, which influences your thoughts, which generate feelings, which manifest as your choices, actions, and behaviors. And this is the stuff we're going to talk about in Module 3 to make your perception of reality, reality. They're all going to conspire together. And that's why it's so critically important. All right, let's move on now. So what we want to do is we want to expand our context, and this brings us to our next key insight, which is key insight number 3. The only way to achieve the impossible is to believe it's possible. And let's use a number that many of you who are taking this class will be familiar with. There's something in the United States called OSHA recordable rate, which is basically your safety record. It's a government documented, once somebody gets hurt to a certain level, it has to be documented, and so it goes into a database, and you have a rate. And for every industry and every sector in the United States, there are the averages. And if you're in one of those type of sectors where safety is an issue, you likely know what your number is. And you likely know how your number compares to the average. So let's say that your number is here and the national average for your industry is down here. Well, that might actually be one of the reasons you're watching this and going through this masterclass, is because you are absolutely engaged in figuring out what to do to bring your number down and hopefully even exceed the national average, or not exceed it, but get below it. Because that number you want to be below, not above. Well, think about this. If you were to go back in your industry or your sector, and let's take that national average for your industry or your sector, 20 years ago, that number was likely somewhere way up here, probably a factor of 10-fold higher. Back then, if you would have asked most people, is this number possible? Most people would have said no. Well, thank goodness there were some folks that said, you know what, we can do this. And that's why we were where we are today. Now, you may say, yeah, but we've driven it as low as we can possibly go. Really? So you're telling me it's impossible to get any better? I will tell you without any reservation that unless your number is 0, it is possible to get better. And the wonderful thing about human performance is, again, if your primary interest of yours is improving safety, a wonderful thing about human performance is that when you focus directly on improving human performance, you get essentially a one-for-one benefit when it comes to safety, but you also get phenomenal benefit in all the other super important areas. such as productivity and efficiency and adaptability and reliability, worker satisfaction, levels of engagement, ownership. I could go on and on and on and on. So let's take one more look at this and use some other terms which have kind of become popular recently. And let's say that it's a beautiful Saturday morning, and you have decided that rather than washing the car and going to get the groceries and doing the laundry and cleaning the house and all that wonderful stuff that most of us do on the weekends, the day is so beautiful, you've decided to take a little time out and take your young son or young daughter to the park. So you go to the park and you're walking through the park together, and I got to ask you, if you're like most adults, what are you thinking about? Well, you're thinking about all kinds of stuff. You're thinking about what happened last week, what's likely to happen next week. Oh my gosh, I'm behind schedule on this. I sure hope these numbers come in. I left this on yesterday afternoon, and oh man, it's going to be waiting for me Monday morning. I wonder how many emails I'm going to have to deal with when I get to work on Monday morning. Yada, 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 yada. Your mind just going, yin, 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 yin. That is what we refer to as having your mind full. And that is nothing but content, right? It's just jammed in there. Now, here's the question I want to ask you. What do you think your young son or daughter is thinking about? Oh, I would imagine they're probably thinking about how beautiful the day is. The sun is warm, the grass is green, life is good, the flowers are beautiful, and I'm here holding the hand of the person I love the most in the whole wide world. This is fantastic. You see, that's what's called being present, being in the moment. You've probably heard those terms before. And one of the terms we're hearing a lot in performance improvement circles today, that's what's called being mindful. Being focused on what you're doing at the moment and clearing distractions out so that you can be super effective or absolutely enjoy what's ever going on at the moment. And that's your context.